12 Stoic habits that silently transform your life. Ancient wisdom. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to navigate life's challenges with grace and inner peace, while others struggle with every setback? Today, we're going to explore 12 Stoic habits that can silently transform your life. These aren't loud revolutionary changes, but subtle shifts in perspective and action that compound over time to create profound transformation. The ancient Stoics understood something that modern psychology is only now confirming. The quality of our lives isn't determined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to what happens. These 12 habits have been practiced by emperors, philosophers, and everyday people for over 2,000 years, and they remain just as relevant today. Before we dive in, I want you to know that these aren't just theoretical concepts, they're practical tools that you can start applying immediately in your daily life. So take a deep breath, set aside the usual distractions of your day, and let's begin this journey together. Habit 1. Start your day with intention. The Stoics believed that how you begin your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, would start each morning by reminding himself of the challenges ahead and preparing his mind to face them with virtue. When you wake up, instead of immediately reaching for your phone or rushing into your routine, take 5 minutes to set your intention for the day. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? How will I respond when things don't go my way? What values will guide my decisions and actions? This simple practice creates a mental framework that helps you navigate difficulties with more clarity and purpose. Starting your day with intention isn't about controlling every outcome. It's about controlling the one thing you truly can control, your own mindset and responses. The Stoics understood that we can't prevent obstacles from appearing, but we can prepare ourselves to meet them with wisdom and resilience by beginning each day with conscious intention. You're training your mind to be proactive rather than reactive. You're choosing the person you want to be rather than letting circumstances choose for you. This habit alone can transform how you experience your entire day. Habit 2. Practice negative visualization. This might sound counterintuitive in our culture of positive thinking, but the Stoics practice something called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This doesn't mean dwelling on worst-case scenarios with anxiety, but rather calmly considering what could go wrong, so you're mentally prepared. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, advised imagining losing the things and people we value, not to make ourselves miserable, but to appreciate them more deeply while we have them. When you practice negative visualization, you might spend a few minutes imagining what your life would be like without certain comforts or relationships. What if you lost your job? What if a loved one was no longer in your life? What if you lost your health? This practice serves multiple purposes. First, it builds resilience by mentally rehearsing challenges before they occur. Second, it cultivates gratitude by making you realize that everything you have is temporary and precious. Third, it reduces anxiety because you've already considered and prepared for difficulties. The key is to do this without fear or dread, but with calm acceptance of life's impermanence. When you regularly practice negative visualization, you stop taking things for granted and start experiencing genuine appreciation for what you have right now. This habit transforms complaining into gratitude and anxiety into preparedness. Habit 3. Focus only on what you can control. Perhaps the most fundamental Stoic principle is the dichotomy of control, recognizing what is within your control and what isn't. Epictetus taught that we have complete control over our own thoughts, judgments, intentions, and responses, but very limited or no control over external events, other people's opinions, the past, or the future. Most of our suffering comes from trying to control things that are outside our power. When you adopt this habit, you start asking yourself in every situation, what part of this is within my control and what part isn't? You might not be able to control whether you get the promotion, but you can control how much effort you put into your work. You can't control whether someone likes you, but you can control whether you act with integrity and kindness. You can't control the traffic, but you can control how you respond to being stuck in it. This habit is liberating because it allows you to stop wasting energy on things you can't change and invest that energy where it actually makes a difference. When you focus only on what you can control, you experience less frustration, less disappointment, and more effectiveness. Your power grows because you're directing it where it can actually create results. This single habit has the potential to eliminate much of the unnecessary stress and anxiety in your life. Habit 4. Embrace discomfort. Voluntarily. The Stoics regularly practiced voluntary discomfort to strengthen their resilience and reduce their dependence on comfort. Seneca would occasionally sleep on a hard floor and eat simple food to remind himself that he could survive without luxury. This habit isn't about punishing yourself, it's about expanding your comfort zone and proving to yourself that you're stronger than you think in practical terms. This might mean taking cold showers occasionally, fasting for a day, exercising when you don't feel like it, or sitting in silence instead of constantly seeking entertainment. When you voluntarily embrace discomfort, you train yourself to handle involuntary discomfort with more grace. You realize that comfort isn't as necessary as you thought, and that you can thrive in conditions you previously would have avoided. This practice also builds discipline because you're doing difficult things by choice, which strengthens your ability to do difficult things when necessary. Moreover, voluntary discomfort increases your appreciation for comfort. When you have it, the warm shower feels amazing after the cold one. The meal tastes better after the fast. By regularly stepping outside your comfort zone, you expand what you're capable of handling, and you stop being controlled by your need for constant ease. This habit transforms you from someone who avoids difficulty to someone who faces it with confidence. Habit 5. Practice mindful observation. The Stoics emphasized the importance of seeing things as they really are, not as we wish them to be or fear them to be. Marcus Aurelius wrote about looking at things objectively, stripping away the stories and judgments we add to raw experience. This habit involves pausing throughout your day to simply observe what's happening without immediately reacting or interpreting. When someone criticizes you, instead of immediately feeling hurt or defensive, pause and observe what actually happened. They said certain words that carried certain meanings. When you face a setback, instead of catastrophizing, pause and observe the actual facts of the situation. This practice of mindful observation creates space between stimulus and response. In that space, you have the freedom to choose how you'll interpret and respond. You start to notice how much of your suffering comes not from events themselves, but from your judgments about those events. When you practice mindful observation, you also become more present. You notice details. You would have missed the way light falls through a window, the expression on someone's face, the taste of your food. This habit transforms reactivity into responsiveness and unconscious living into conscious awareness. Habit 6. Keep a philosophical journal. All the major Stoics kept journals where they reflected on their experiences, examined their thoughts, and reminded themselves of philosophical principles. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is essentially his personal journal written for himself, not for publication. Keeping a philosophical journal doesn't require hours of writing. Even 5 to 10 minutes of reflection can be transformative in your journal. You might write about challenges you faced and how you handled them, examining whether your responses aligned with your values. You might explore patterns in your thinking, noting when you catastrophize, when you take things personally, or when you worry about things outside your control. You might write letters to yourself, reminding yourself of Stoic principles when you're struggling. The act of writing clarifies your thinking. When thoughts swirl in your mind, they remain vague and overwhelming, but when you write them down, you can see them more clearly. and work with them more effectively. Journaling also creates a record of your growth. Months later, you can look back and see how you've changed, what lessons you've learned, and what patterns keep recurring. This habit transforms confusion into clarity and unconscious patterns into conscious understanding. Habit 7. Practice the view from above. The Stoics used a technique called the view from above, imagining themselves from a great distance or height to gain perspective on their problems. Marcus Aurelius would imagine the vastness of space and time, recognizing that his concerns were tiny in the grand scheme of things. This isn't about dismissing your problems or feelings, but about putting them in proper perspective. When you practice this habit, you might imagine viewing your life from high above, seeing yourself as one person among billions on a planet spinning through space. You might consider that in 100 years, almost everyone who knows you will be gone, and in 1,000 years you'll be completely forgotten. This might sound depressing, but the Stoics found it liberating. It frees you from the tyranny of your ego and the desperate need for everything to go your way. When you zoom out, you realize that the argument you had, the mistake you made, or the embarrassment you experienced isn't as catastrophic as it feels. This perspective doesn't make your life meaningless. It actually helps you focus on what truly matters with limited time. Why waste it on petty concerns, trivial conflicts, or other people's opinions? This habit transforms anxiety into calm and self-importance into humility. Habit 8. Practice sympathetic understanding. While the Stoics emphasized logic and reason, they also recognized the importance of understanding and compassion. Marcus Aurelius regularly reminded himself that when people act badly, they're doing so out of ignorance or error, not malice. They don't know better, or they're struggling with their own pain. This habit involves actively trying to understand why people behave as they do when someone is rude, instead of taking offense. Pause and consider what might be happening in their life when someone makes a mistake instead of judging them. Consider how you've made similar mistakes when someone holds different views. Instead of dismissing them, try to understand their reasoning and experience. This practice doesn't mean accepting harmful behavior or abandoning your boundaries. It means recognizing that everyone is fighting battles you know nothing about, and that understanding precedes effective response. When you practice sympathetic understanding, you experience less anger, less frustration, and fewer conflicts. You respond to difficult people and situations with more wisdom and effectiveness. This habit transforms judgment into compassion and conflict into connection. Habit 9. Align your actions with your values. The Stoics believed that the key to a good life is living in accordance with virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. This habit involves regularly examining whether your actions match your stated values. It's easy to say you value health, but do you eat well and exercise? It's easy to say you value relationships, but do you invest time and attention in the people you care about? It's easy to say you value honesty, but do you tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable? This practice requires brutal honesty with yourself. You have to acknowledge the gap between who you say you are and who your actions reveal you to be. The Stoics weren't concerned with appearing virtuous, but with actually being virtuous. To practice this habit, review your day each evening. Identify moments when your actions aligned with your values and moments when they didn't. Don't beat yourself up over failures, but use them as information about where you need to focus your attention over time. This practice closes the gap between your ideals and your reality. You become more integrated, more authentic, and more at peace with yourself. This habit transforms hypocrisy into integrity and confusion into clarity. Habit 10. Practice gratitude actively. While the Stoics practiced negative visualization to prepare for loss, they also actively cultivated gratitude for what they had. Epictetus taught that it's not what we have, but our attitude toward what we have that determines our happiness. Active gratitude goes beyond feeling thankful. It involves expressing thanks and recognizing the contributions of others. Each day, identify 3 specific things you're grateful for, not just generically, but specifically. Instead of "I'm grateful for my health," it might be "I'm grateful that my body allowed me to walk in the park this morning." Instead of "I'm grateful for my family," it might be "I'm grateful for the laugh I shared with my daughter at breakfast." Express gratitude directly to people who've helped you or made your life better. Write a note, send a message, or simply say "thank you" with genuine appreciation. The Stoics understood that every good thing in our lives is temporary and comes partially through the efforts of countless others. When you practice active gratitude, you shift your focus from what's missing to what's present, from what's wrong to what's right. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, but it means not allowing problems to blind you to blessings. This habit transforms complaining into appreciation and dissatisfaction into contentment. Habit 11. Accept what is. Acceptance is one of the most misunderstood Stoic concepts. It doesn't mean passive resignation or approval of injustice. It means acknowledging reality as it is right now before deciding how to respond. The Stoics taught that we suffer. When we resist what already is, you might wish it didn't rain on your outdoor event, but it did. You might wish the person hadn't said those words, but they did. You might wish you hadn't made that mistake, but you did. When you accept what is, you stop wasting energy on denial or wishing things were different. This frees up that energy to deal with reality. Effectively, acceptance is the starting point for all effective action. If you're in a hole, acceptance means acknowledging, "I'm in a hole," not wishing. You won't. Only then can you figure out how to climb out. To practice this habit, notice when you're resisting reality. Notice phrases like, "This shouldn't be happening," "Why did this have to happen?" "This isn't fair." These phrases indicate resistance, which creates suffering. Replace them with, "This is what happened now." What's the wise response? This doesn't mean you can't work to change things. Acceptance and action aren't opposites. Acceptance is the foundation for effective action. This habit transforms resistance into flow and suffering into peace. Habit 12. Remember your mortality. The Stoics practiced memento mori, remembering death. They kept reminders of mortality, not to be morbid, but to live more fully. When you truly internalize that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on trivial matters. You stop postponing important things. You stop holding grudges, and you start living with urgency and purpose each morning. Remind yourself that this day is not guaranteed. Each evening, reflect that you're one day closer to your last. This might sound dark, but the Stoics found it profoundly liberating. When you remember that you will die, you stop taking life for granted. Conversations become more meaningful, experiences become richer, and time becomes precious. You realize that the argument you're having, the grudge you're holding, or the risk you're avoiding might matter less than you think. You have limited days. Why waste them on what doesn't truly matter? This practice also reduces fear. When you accept that death is inevitable and natural, it loses some of its power over you. You can take risks, speak truth, and live authentically because you've already accepted the ultimate outcome. This habit transforms complacency into gratitude, fear into courage, and distraction into focus. Conclusion: we've explored 12 Stoic habits that can silently transform your life. Starting your day with intention, practicing negative visualization, focusing on what you can control, embracing voluntary discomfort, practicing mindful observation, keeping a philosophical journal, using the view from above, practicing sympathetic understanding, aligning actions with values, cultivating active gratitude, accepting what is, and remembering mortality. These aren't quick fixes or magic solutions. They're practices that compound over time, creating subtle but profound shifts in how you experience life. The beauty of these habits is that they don't require perfect implementation. You don't need to master all 12 at once. Start with one or two that resonate most with you. Practice them imperfectly but consistently. The Stoics themselves weren't perfect. They struggled, failed, and started again, but they kept returning to these practices because they worked. As you begin to integrate these habits into your life, you'll notice changes. You'll find yourself less reactive and more responsive. You'll experience less anxiety and more peace. You'll stop being tossed around by circumstances and start standing firm in your values. These changes happen quietly without fanfare. One day you'll realize that a situation that would have devastated you last year now barely registers. You'll notice that you're handling challenges with grace that you once handled with panic. You'll recognize that you've become more of the person you want to be. The Stoic path isn't easy. It requires honesty, discipline, and courage, but it offers something rare in our chaotic world: genuine peace of mind that comes not from having everything go your way, but from being prepared to handle things when they don't. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready for this journey. I encourage you to choose one habit from this list and commit to practicing it for the next week. Notice what changes. Leave a comment sharing which habit you're starting with and why. Subscribe for more content on Stoic wisdom and practical philosophy. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, but progress. It's not about never struggling, but about struggling with wisdom. It's not about controlling life, but about mastering yourself. The ancient Stoics faced wars, plagues, political turmoil, and personal tragedies. Yet they maintained inner peace and acted with virtue. You face your own challenges in your own time, but the same principles that guided them can guide you starting today with these 12 habits. You can begin the quiet transformation that leads to a life of meaning, resilience, and genuine contentment. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Take that step. Today, practice one habit, then another, and watch as your life transforms, not loudly or dramatically, but steadily and profoundly. This is the Stoic way. This is how you build an unshakable life. The power is in your hands. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Stoic wisdom. Until next time, stay with the Creator.